Welcome, viewers. Today, we explore how the magnificent Persian Empire faced a truly brutal doom on the endless steppes. Imagine a massive army of 700,000 men, fiercely marching to conquer a completely barren wasteland. Their strange enemy had no cities, no walls to besiege, and no central king for them to capture or vanquish. Instead, Darius faced the Scythian horse archers, ghostly warriors who struck and vanished quickly away. How did a single nomadic tribe defeat the world's most powerful force? Let us uncover the shocking truth right now. The fateful year was 513 before Christ, when the great king Darius crossed the Black Sea proudly. He proudly led the mightiest force in ancient history, aiming to completely crush the wild Scythian tribes forever. According to ancient Greek records, the advancing Persian army was a truly magnificent sight of countless brave soldiers. They wore shining bronze armor and carried long spears, ready to wipe out any foe in their deadly crimson path. The great King Darius stood tall upon his magnificent chariot, confident that his enemies would soon bow before him. However, as they marched ever deeper into the vast Eurasian steppes, the majestic Persian glory quickly faded away. The desolate land was remarkably flat, dry, and truly endless, stretching out like a vast ocean of dead yellow grass. Endless weeks turned into agonizing months, and the exhausted soldiers found absolutely no cities or armies to fight. The scorching summer sun beat down on their heavy metal armor, turning it into a burning, hot oven. The mighty infantry began to stumble, their lips cracked and bleeding from the terrible dry heat of the sun. Fresh drinking water became a remarkably rare treasure, and severe dehydration drove the brave men into total madness. Suffocating dust clouds choked their dry throats as hundreds of thousands of boots trampled the barren earth in total dark despair. Darius looked at the empty horizon, realizing that his gigantic numbers were completely useless here. The magnificent Persian war machine was designed to crush fortresses, but you simply cannot conquer the empty air. Wherever they marched, the mysterious enemy was always just out of their frustrated, desperate reach. Weak soldiers collapsed from exhaustion, their fallen forms left behind for the hungry vultures circling in the sky. Countless mules and war horses collapsed under the heavy burden of vital food supplies that were running dangerously low. The majestic king's face was covered in dark soot and sweat, his royal cloak completely torn by the harsh, violent winds. A slow, creeping fear spread through the camp as the mighty invaders became the helpless, exhausted, hunted prey. They were fighting a desperate, losing war against space itself, a battle that no amount of gold could ever truly win. Every morning they woke up to find only more endless plains stretching out to mock their painful suffering. The deceptive desert mirage played cruel tricks upon their fragile minds, making them see phantom pools that did not exist. The profound and deep silence on the vast steppe was broken only by the tragic cries of fallen men and the howling wind. It was a dark, psychological torture, designed to break the spirit of the great Achaemenid army. The desperate soldiers blindly swung their weapons at shadows as the invisible enemy refused to show their faces. Darius sent messages demanding a fair fight, but his angry words were swallowed by the vast, empty void. The invaders were starving, while the nomads mocked them from afar with their chilling, ghostly, echoing whistles. Heavy infantry formations broke apart as strict discipline crumbled among the desperately thirst-crazed troops. They had effortlessly conquered Babylon and Egypt, yet they were being defeated by mere dirt and dry yellow grass. Just who were these remarkably strange phantoms of the vast steppe that could bring an epic empire to its tragic, broken knees? To truly understand their doom, we must look back at the free nomad life of the ancient Scythian people. The wild Scythians did not build palaces of stone or hide behind thick, defensive, towering city walls. Their entire magnificent kingdom was fully mobile, carried on horseback and in leather tents across the wide, open plains. The very young children of the vast steppe learned to ride horses before they could even walk safely on their own 2 feet. From a remarkably young age, both boys and girls were heavily trained to become deadly archers and fearless, skilled riders. Their horses were small, but incredibly tough, able to easily survive in the harshest winter conditions. Scythian artisans mastered the art of Iron Age metalwork, crafting brilliant and durable bronze scale armor. They adorned themselves with beautiful gold jewelry, featuring fierce animals locked in brutal, epic combat. But their deadliest invention was the composite recurve bow, a true masterpiece of ancient weaponry. Made of wood, horn, and sinew, this short bow packed enough power to easily pierce through solid copper shields. A Scythian warrior could shoot 20 arrows a minute while galloping forward at full, blinding speed. This supreme mobility allowed them to dictate the terms of battle against any heavy, grounded foe. They simply drank mare's milk and ate dried meat, meaning they never needed slow supply wagons to follow them around. In sharp contrast, the Persian army required massive amounts of grain and water just to safely stay alive. Darius falsely believed that his sheer numbers would terrify the nomads into a quick, cowardly submission. He was used to enemies who stood their ground to defend their farms, temples, and sacred, beautiful palaces. But the Scythians had nothing fixed to protect, making them completely impossible to trap or corner. They viewed the gigantic Persian host not as a threat, but as a clumsy, vulnerable, slow-moving giant. If you were suddenly offered a choice between mighty walls or endless freedom, which would you actually choose today? The nomads chose freedom, and they designed a brilliant strategy to strongly defend it at all terrible costs. This brutal tactic would later be known as Scorched Earth, a ruthless method of total, fiery destruction. Instead of violently clashing swords, they simply packed up their tents and retreated further into the uncharted wild. They avoided any major battles, knowing that the harsh, cruel nature would do the devastating work for them. As the nomads rode away, they deliberately poisoned or filled in every single clean water well. They ruthlessly set giant fires to the dry pastures, leaving absolutely no grass for the Persian cavalry horses. The entire land was stripped bare, transformed into a blackened graveyard of toxic ash and blistering, intense heat. Historians note that this asymmetrical warfare was something the Persians never expected to face. It was truly a fatal clash between a monumental empire and a fleeting, untouchable ghost army. The mighty invaders were blindly chasing the wind, burning their own precious energy with every step. This sets the dark stage for the most humiliating disaster in ancient military history. Meanwhile, back in the brutal summer heat, the depleted Persian troops struggled to breathe through the thick, bitter, toxic smoke. King Darius watched his truly proud soldiers fall to their knees, gasping for air and begging the gods for sweet water. And just when the exhausted invaders reached their absolute breaking point, the vast horizon suddenly came alive. Emerging out of the blinding dust storms, thousands of Scythian horsemen rapidly materialized like angry demons. They never simply charged into close combat with swords, smartly avoiding the deadly reach of Persian long spears. Instead, they circled the exhausted army like a pack of hungry wolves around a heavily wounded bear. A truly terrifying shower of poisoned arrows rained down upon the utterly helpless, screaming infantry ranks. The incredibly sharp arrows pierced through the wicker shields and bronze armor as if they were made of fragile paper. Absolute panic erupted as Persian soldiers dropped in sheer agony, unable to strike back at the fast foes. Darius fiercely ordered his own heavy cavalry to pursue, but their tired horses could not keep up. This was the legendary birth of the famous Parthian shot, a brilliant move that struck pure terror into empires. The clever Scythians would pretend to flee in complete panic, drawing the Persians out of their strong defensive lines. Then suddenly, while galloping away, they twisted their bodies backwards and abruptly fired with truly deadly aim. It was an impossible display of agility, turning a retreat into a lethal, devastating attack. Before the deeply shocked Persians could ever recover, the ghostly riders vanished back into the thick, swirling dust. King Darius quickly realized his mighty campaign was a total failure against these completely invisible foes. The vast and endless horizon offered no glorious battles, only a terribly slow and agonizing demise. His massive, once invincible army was failing rapidly, with absolutely zero chance to strike a fatal winning blow. The great king sent out multiple desperate messages, demanding they stop running and fiercely fight him face to face. However, the deeply defiant nomad leaders sent back a bird, a mouse, a frog, and 5 piercing arrows in return. This profoundly chilling message warned that unless the Persians could fly or hide, they would surely all soon perish. Overwhelming panic finally broke the rigid iron discipline of the once proud and invincible invaders. Every single shadow within the swirling dust storm seemed like a deadly rider ready to strike them all down. The incredibly brutal reality was that the giant empire was being destroyed by the endless open space. Just how long could a massive military machine truly survive without water or a highly visible foe? The tragically bitter answer was written in the scorching sands as thousands of brave warriors perished there. Their once beautifully shiny armor became a heavy tomb, sealing their dark fate under the cruel, scorching sun. The absolutely terrifying whistles of the Scythian archers haunted their restless, fearful dreams at night. The great King Darius finally knew his grand campaign was completely ruined, beyond any true hope of repair. He now faced a truly terrible, heartbreaking choice between his huge pride and his army's bare survival. If he stayed to fight a phantom enemy, his entire grand empire would surely fall to absolute ruin. Yet completely retreating meant a humiliating defeat that the whole world would remember for all time. The unbelievably vast Eurasian steppes had easily swallowed his epic ambition without a single trace. Deep into the bitterly cold autumn, the mighty Persian king made his ultimate, tragic, and dark decision. Under the thick cover of total darkness, the completely defeated, massive army began to silently retreat. They cleverly left the campfires burning brightly to trick the watchful Scythians on the high, shadowy hills. However, the absolute most brutal part of this escape was who they chose to leave behind, alone, in the dirt. Thousands of severely sick and wounded soldiers were cruelly abandoned to cleanly mask the army's quick escape. Innocent donkeys and mules were tied up tightly so their loud noises would fully hide the silent, cowardly march. Imagine the absolute horror of waking up to realize your own king has left you here to perish. The terribly sick men cried out in the darkness, reaching desperately for their vanishing, fearful comrades. Their deeply painful, agonizing screams helplessly echoed across the vast, empty plains until the bitter, cold dawn. When the golden morning sun finally rose, the Scythian riders looked down upon the ruined, abandoned camp. The supposedly invincible Persian forces had fled like cowards, beaten by the sheer size of the harsh land. King Darius somehow managed to save his own life, crossing the river back to his comfortable, secure throne. However, his legendary reputation was shattered forever by these wild and nameless, incredibly fearful ghosts. The undeniably huge Persian Empire learned a truly painful lesson about fighting an invisible enemy. You simply cannot conquer a nation that naturally carries its entire home on the swift backs of its strong horses. This profoundly humiliating disaster shocked the ancient world, proving that sheer size does not guarantee a win. The Scythians became legendary phantoms, feared by every major civilized kingdom around. Their highly deadly tactics of hit and run would brilliantly inspire many future steppe empires for centuries. Even the mighty Romans would later suffer incredibly similar tragic fates against these wild nomad riders. The empty wasteland remained entirely unconquered, a vast green ocean where only the strong could safely survive. King Darius survived, but the thousands of men he left behind paid the ultimate, tragic, fearful price. Their tragic bones bleached under the harsh steppe sun, forgotten victims of a foolish, arrogant, bitter war. The fearless ghost archers of the vast Eurasian plains proved that endless space and speed are the ultimate weapons. They successfully defended their boundless freedom without ever building a single protective wall. For over 2 grueling months, they played a brilliant game of survival that totally crushed a massive giant. The scattering ashes of the burned grass carried the chilling story of the great Persian humiliation. It was a truly powerful victory for the wild nomads, permanently cementing their fierce and terrifying name. The quiet Black Sea remained a dark reminder of the deadly campaign that abruptly ended in total, shameful ruin. The mighty Persian king could easily conquer the civilized world, but he could never conquer the endless wild. The Scythians proved that endless space and supreme mobility could easily conquer sheer, massive numbers. But was their ruthless scorched earth tactic a brilliant move, or simply a coward's way to fight? Comment right down below. If you enjoyed this historical journey, please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more epic tales.